Hey everyone, Brandon here from Snowmod RC. Today we are talking about my initial thoughts on the Redcat Racing Gen 8. If you hadn't seen it, I recently picked one up to see what it was all about. It is my first rig outside of the Axial brand for the last 8 years, and I gotta say right off the bat that my initial thoughts are completely positive. This is a serious I guess you could say contender in the scale industry, in my opinion. So we're going to go through some things pretty quick. I'm not going to drag this on too much. I got my notes here so we can get through this. And here we go. Alright, so first things first, let's start with the things I changed. I changed the wheels and foams, and that's simply because of where I live. Right now, it's still pretty cold, especially in the evening. So the foams for me were just a little stiff in the cold, and I wanted to give this rig a fair chance, so I swapped out the foams. And I also swapped out the wheels because I had some 1.9 wheels sitting around. So I figured why not give it its own unique look as I test it out. So with that, I wanted to let you all know these have steel beadlock rings. They are not aluminum, just so everybody knows. So the wheel itself, even though the core is plastic, is actually a really good weight. I did paint them because I'm probably going to put them on something, but I am not a fan of chrome personally. I don't do shiny, so that's just a preference thing. But anyways, the wheels are actually really nice. You get a little bit of extra mounting stuff, the spare tire rack, and then another thing I wanted to point out, which I thought was awesome, is that Redcat has on their thingiverse.com, Redcat has 3D printable grills so you can make the truck look however you want. They also have windshield wipers, door handles, a roof rack, gas cap. I mean, all the little detail accessories you can print yourself to give the Gen 8 a much more scale appearance. With scale appearance being talked about, the only thing I don't like is the black taped windows. As a scale truck, I get what they were doing, and it is cheaper and faster to just spray the whole body and be done with it and toss some stickers over it. But at the same time, with the attention to detail of this rig overall, I would have liked to have seen clear windows. So, but again, that's just preference. It doesn't have anything to do with the performance of the truck, so it's pretty much irrelevant. Alright, onto the truck itself. Alright, well, first off, the rig was packed extremely well. They did everything they could to make sure that this rig shows up at your house unscratched, undamaged, so that anything done to it is you. It is as fresh as can be, and that was amazing. I have seen some poorly packed things in the past. This is not one of them. They literally cover the entire truck with some sort of protection so that it gets to your house in the best condition possible, which was great. The rig performs extremely well. The shocks are not leaking after a couple hard runs, after doing my shakedown runs. The tires are a great compound and stick really well. If you're not familiar or you haven't done the research, this is actually a heavy truck. It weighs around, I want to say, 8-ish pounds. It is not as light as most RTRs out there, which is part of why it handles so well. There's a lot of metal included in this rig, and for the price of $299, in my opinion, you can't really beat this truck. You know, looking at it quickly, like I said, I'm going to keep this short and sweet, but looking at it quickly, you can see all the weight is down low. All well below the shock towers, even with the battery installed. I run a 5000 mAh 2S, and it doesn't get any higher than probably right about here. So even with everything, you know, in it, and how, you know, in running condition with the battery and all that weight is down low where it needs to be. There's nothing above the shock tower, so the center of gravity is fantastic. Also, all the weight is very centered. You can see here that, you know, the electronics are really the only thing on the outside. The truck itself is extremely well balanced. When you get up on the rocks and you start twisting it up or even lean into the outside, you can tell that there is not more than maybe an ounce or so to one side or the other, not enough to affect performance at all. So with them keeping everything down low and mainstream down the middle, it yields great trail fun. Now underneath you can see even more metal, which is a good thing, especially for the price. You get a metal servo horn, which is nice to see within the industry these days. We all know plastic servo horns don't last. I have, even with the transmission hump, which some people didn't like, this has portals, so the ground clearance is still pretty good. So I'm not too worried about that personally. There is nothing I would say on this rig that is a downside in any way. I mean, it can all be fixed. I know somebody already makes an aftermarket skid plate, and that's the nice thing about this truck. They did leave room for aftermarket, and even Red Cat itself already has some things that you can buy, such as aluminum portal boxes, things like that. While we're talking about the skid plate, one of the things I noticed is that the wheelbase is actually adjustable by not really doing anything exotic, which is actually nice. So all you would have to do is right here, move the lengths forward or backwards, and you get a little bit longer or shorter wheelbase. So that makes it super simple to match up to a different body if you decide to change it later on. Even Red Cat on its website has other bodies that you can purchase, so they're doing their best to make sure that they're slamming into the scale game and giving people as much as they can. This is their first in-house design, and I gotta say, like I said, I have never ran Red Cat till now, and I believe this is definitely a rig to add to your collection. There are some things that are different than others, and different isn't necessarily a bad thing. Like some of the joints or the link mount spots and stuff are single shear instead of double shear, which I don't really see a problem. One thing you'll notice as soon as you take this thing out of the box is just how beefy this plastic is. It is not a cheap, thin, plastic by any means, so I don't think those single shear points are going to be a problem. The only thing I have broke so far is the plastic shackles. Other than that, the rig itself handles everything really well. I have tumbled it a few times. As far as performance wise, the only thing I had, and this isn't necessarily a bad thing, so don't take it that way, any rig that has a Panhard setup has a little bit of bump steer. I mean, you can eliminate it by adjusting some things, which is exactly the case here. So all I did is I actually moved the tie rod to the lower end of the knuckle to give the drag link a more similar angle as the Panhard back here. So that fixed the bump steer almost 100%. I mean, there is very slight, but again, I don't think that's a downfall. It's easy to fix, so it's kind of irrelevant in the scheme of things. As far as electronics and stuff, I don't see any issues so far. It has plenty of power when you need it, but the slow crawl is actually really smooth, especially with all the gear reduction. I'm not sure exactly what it is at the wheels. I will have to look into that. But with the gear reduction of the transmission and the divorce transfer case and all that on a 17-turn motor, you would think 17-turn is fast, and it is, but not in this truck. It's got enough giddy up and go if you need to hop something, but not excessive enough that you're gonna flip it backwards. And as I said, the slow crawl is actually really impressive. So the body is actually really nice. This is decent Lexan. It's not super thin. With all their scale fender flares and wheel well stuff they added, it gives a nice rigidity to the body. Another thing to note too that I thought was awesome, these are all full light buckets in the back and the front with real lenses. This is not part of the body. You can actually take that lens off. It's not just a housing mounted to the Lexan. It is an actual light bucket, which I thought was pretty cool. But the body itself does take a beating. As you can see, I've scratched it up a little bit. The mirrors are actually pretty durable, and because of how they fold, I found that any rocks I hit, they just kind of fold over or rotate down or whatever they need to. So they are actually still on there, which is impressive. I actually have the gas cap 3D printed. I'm still working on painting it, but you can see there that is also one of the scale accessories that they have available to make this rig a little bit more your own should you decide to keep it that way. Alright, so we've gone through the truck, kind of gave my 2 cents. Let's recap it real quick. And I apologize for the pauses and stutters, but I'm honestly trying to make sure you guys get my most honest opinion, which I have always given. And I'm trying to find something bad about the truck. Not because I want to, but because I really can't think of anything so far that I don't like about the truck. It's got great centered and low center of gravity. It's got all that metal and stuff that you would normally change anyways for within the price point. It's got decent electronics for an RTR. The battery tray is massive, so you can put whatever you want in there. You know, you got functional headlight housings and taillight housings. There's just the shocks don't even leak. You know, to see an RTR that has shocks that don't leak, that was pretty nice to see. Most trucks I've ran within the first run or two, they would already be leaking. These haven't, and they are aluminum bodied shocks. So that, in my opinion, is a great thing. You know, and anything negative I could think about isn't really negative because it's fixable. And if it's fixable, then it's irrelevant. You know, the bump steer, I changed mine, like I said earlier, by flipping the tie rod over, and you know, that's that. You know, the hump and the skid plate that people don't like, somebody out there already has an aftermarket one to raise that up. That makes it irrelevant. You know, things can be fixed. There's room in this rig for aftermarket support, which there should be. But out of the box, you can go have a hell of a lot of fun with this truck. Should you add it to your collection? In my opinion, I would. Especially if you are looking to branch out and try something new, which is part of the reason I picked this up. I think you should add it to your collection. I think it's worth the money, and I can't wait to build on it, to be honest. So, that's all I got. I don't have much more to say. There are a few things, of course, that I would like to see changed or improved on later or in the next rig, but none of them affect the performance of the truck, so I'm not even going to mention them. There's just really no point. Does the truck run great? Yes. Would I add it to my collection? I did. Would I keep it in my collection? Yep. Do I think it's a good RTR? Yep. It's good. It's a great platform for new people into the hobby and scale builders. There's a lot of potential in this truck. So it's not just a rig, it is a platform. You can definitely go way above and beyond what is here and make it your own should you decide to do that, and probably with a lot less work than some other trucks. So stay tuned, please hit that thumbs up or the subscribe, and I will be definitely doing some more videos on this truck. I have much more terrain and places and such that this thing is going to see before I build on it at all, so I can give you guys as thorough of a experience I have with this truck as possible, since it's all very new to me. But so far everything is positive, and I can't wait to see what else it can do. We'll see you next time.